Everybody, I think I'm speaking through this for online rather than for here. So I'll just have to speak up. Okay, well, good morning and welcome to everybody attending, both internal within the court entity, our external guests, thank you for being here, and everybody online. We will do some further formalities a bit later when we go upstairs, but just briefly, my name's Katie Stride. I'm the Native Title Registrar with the Native Title Tribunal and one of the RAT champions together with Jane Sandry. And it's my great pleasure to MC this launch, which is to celebrate the formal endorsement of the court entity's new Reflect RAT. I'd like to acknowledge the traditional owners of Meanjin, where we gathered here, and we are fortunate to have the traditional owners welcome us to country today and do a performance for us to start the event. So I'd like to welcome Tribal Experience. We're somewhere here.
Just means good day, long version, that's what we know. My name's Shannon Ruska, and we are Tribal Experiences, and we're glad to welcome you here to Yagara Turrbal country, where my ancestry lineage comes from, through our granny Maminda, Daisy Thompson, and also through grandfather Mookin on two different lineages, like a Gurrumbul, Turrbal lineage, which is part of the larger area group, and then the Gadigal, and then also parts of the Turrbal up to the northern parts of the country as well. So three different lineages through me and my sons here. Also, Jono here on Didgeridoo, who's got connections to the Wababara people, the Camilla people, and there's probably more. Yeah, we've got different lineages, 8 different lineages when you go back. And then we've got young Jarlo Walker there too. You might know the famous Ojaru Nunaku Cat Walker, that's a direct grandson right there. So you've got from the Quandamuka people, North Stradbroke Island and the Moreton Bay area. And it's glad to showcase not only the Brisbane culture, but the surrounding districts as well. This next dance I'd like to do for you is one which we call Yogara. Yogara is the goanna, and it's also Yagara, means Yawa means to sing or to talk. Gara means the man's part, and it also means like a corroboree, like with the men. And then it also is the goanna. So it has a few different meanings. So Inogra, the word Inogra, it never existed. The closest to it was Nerogara. Nerogara meant the crocodile, but Yogara meant the goanna. Crocodile, some eyebrows raised, because yes, there was crocodiles in this area. Don't believe me, go down to Yap Plies and look on the wall. Or if you haven't got time, look up that old uncle, he knows everything. Up at Google. But our elders at Perga, when we sit with them, they would talk, like Joe Davidson and all of them, about dancing, about crocodile. more like, it's quite noisy, isn't it? It's not. Yeah, it's all the way out. But there's it all around. And through this country, around those crocodiles, because they was in the rivers. So this dance has got one, which is the next one now. Oh, the name of Breakfast Creek. I give you off the North Stradbroke Garden. Anyone ever been there before? Biggest waves in the world. But that place is out Hawaii of Australia, I'd say. But at North Stradbroke Garden, Wanamuka people, Nunaka people, which on our Ruska lineage we're also from. And over there, Jarbo's family was instrumental in making the song and dance very public and in the public eye. And Gurrigan is one of their dances that they do. Gurrigan is a white crane bird. The white crane bird goes down and searches for his feeding ground. When he has eaten and his belly is full, he would spread his wings into dance. Believed to be the teacher of dance in the dream time. We've shown you some dancing, and we're doing reconciliation here today, aren't we? We've got some about Murray and Torres Strait on the mob. Put your hands up. All right. You can show them how to shake a leg. Non-Aboriginal people here, put your hands up. Okay, it's about time we do show them how to shake a leg. Reconciliation is coming to the table. One side of the party, the other side of the party, and we're at that day and age where we're all old enough now to sit down and talk about those past things that happened and look how we, as our generation, can push those things into the future, not just for the Aboriginal children, but your children too. So on that note, we're going to get you all to shake a leg. How about that? Before we finish up here. What we need to do is get some space, just get a little bit of space, step back, step to the side, put your arms out, don't poke anyone in the eyes next to you. Okay. All right, you all got some. Now we need one of you to take some footage. Anyone? Is anyone? We got that person right there. Big round of applause for that person. This will be my social. Here we go. So we're going to ask the guys to show the ladies what they have to do first. Men, we're going to get you to clap along. So men, clap along at the same time. Let's keep it nice and slow. We might go one foot in front of the other, ladies only, and you go, what's and slowly, and step. Here we go. Now stop. All right, so we're going to ask the gentlemen now, the men, we need you. Put your arms out like a big bird. That's it. Now the next part is to bend your knees and squat like you're going to the timber, I believe. Squatting. And you're going to shake your leg. And ladies, kindly, like a film, here we go. Then, knees. Next disco. We can't do our last song and dance. It's been a pleasure to join you this morning. And one about respecting Mother Earth. No matter where you go across Australia, we usually dance about respecting our land and we sing about it. And the reason why is because she's our mother. And some may wonder, why do we as Indigenous people, not only in Australia, but across the globe, say Mother Earth? Because we have this belief in this area, and the belief is, yes, the belief is in the big creator of God, called Baal, which is the God, or you might call him a different name. And remember in some of those stories, we look at the Christian times, they speak the languages. We all spoke different languages, correct? There you go, there's one answer. So, the other part is that while we're here on Mother Earth, she's here looking after us. So, I asked the old fellow, Uncle Joe Davidson, at Burger, I was about 13. My son's 15, I shouldn't say he's 14. 2 years older, yes, you know. And I'm sitting there around the garden, and he's showing some painting, and he goes, I said, after I started something, I was wondering why we call it Mother Earth. And he said, boy, because some people don't have their mother on Earth. But that mother never put the roof over your head. That mother is the car in the car that you drive, the train you catch, everything you come from is on you or uses the mother in order for you to survive. The clothes on you, everything. That's why we show our respect from here. When we're gone, we go back to the sky country, we call it the sky country, Aralika. And when we go away, Alika. And when we get up to that skyland, it's like everyone else. So, this last dance is respecting Mother.
Well, that was great. Thank you very much, Shannon and Tribal Experience, for sharing this significant day with us. Much appreciated. And sorry for people online didn't get to see your colleagues and managers dancing, but I'm sure there's some great video footage out there, so you have to ask for it. Okay, so just one more round of applause. Thank you for Tribal Experience. Okay, for this next section, and to resume some formalities and addresses, we're going to move up to level 6 in the Brisbane Courts building. So we'll just ask everybody online if you can bear with us. I understand the video will be playing for 5 minutes, and the rest of us, we've got 5 minutes to get up to level 6 and get settled. Okay, thank you.
Reconciliation is like healing back the hurts that people have done to you a long time, but also our church play a big part in. It's like forgiving, like forgiveness in like that reconciliation. It's about us showing that love and that learning and teaching one another, you know. I reckon reconciliation is really good, you know, bringing back unity for everybody, doesn't matter who. Reconciliation is a good one.
Reconciliation means to me that I'd like for my children and my grandchildren to not suffer the things what our ancestors, you know, fought for us to have equality in our own country. They can be proud of who they are for all of us, just not to be that ticker box for any organisations or anyone when they say, oh, that's a black person, that they could approach us in a more positive, natural way as they would speak to anyone else on the street.
I got to ask the question, how can you reconcile something that never was reconciled in the first place? So it's a difficult question to answer in any way, except for the fact is that we never had any rights. The land was taken from us. Our language was taken from us. I was taken from my mother with my brothers and sisters. So reconciliation is something that my understanding of it should be that the people who have come across here and claimed ownership of this land should be reconciling with themselves about what they did to our people.
Reconciliation to me means that we are committing to embark on a journey together, that we are willing to acknowledge that past hurts and injustices have been caused and that there are some things that our people will continue to suffer from moving forward. But for me, it means reconciliation means that people are willing to walk with us on that journey, that we're willing to support one another hand in hand together for the betterment of our country and our people and our cultures, but also sharing that this is all of our land, this is all of our homes, and that if we're going to walk the journey together, reconciliation is where it's at, and we can go on that journey together.
It means we need to make one Australia. We're all Australians, no matter what nationality we are. I also believe the non-Indigenous and the Indigenous people of Australia need to communicate and come together. Whether it be work, whether it just be hanging out together, you know, engaging and doing things together as well. And I also believe that non-Indigenous people really need to recognise what the First Nations people have been through and what they're still going through. So recognise that and have the respect for First Nation people of Australia.
There's a few more seats down here. Might as well use them. Just talk. It's no mic. It's not that thing. Yeah. Okay, are we good to go? Okay, welcome back, everybody. Thank you. That was a very speedy shuffle upstairs. Okay, I'd like to acknowledge, I'll miss people, but thank you very much, Justice Longbottom, for attending, President Kevin Smith for the Tribunal, and we've got several registrars, CEO of the FCFCOA, and online I will introduce the Principal Registrar, CEO of the FCA and Accountable Authority very shortly. So thank you all for coming. Appreciate also the attendance from Reconciliation Queensland and also Reconciliation Australia that have endorsed the RAP for sharing this journey with us and your attendance today. So we're going to proceed shortly with some addresses from senior representatives in the courts and the tribunal, and also from Reconciliation Australia and Queensland Executive. I will then briefly outline the RAP development and unveil the RAP artwork, and that'll be followed by some refreshments that have been provided by Indigenous catering company that we quite often use, Fig Jam, and can recommend. But we hope that those here present in Brisbane are able to stay and partake in that and have a chat. So now I'll proceed with introducing Ms. Thea Lagos, who is, as I mentioned before, the accountable authority for the entity, to give us address virtually. There's a bit of shuffling between screen, and bear with us with that. Thank you, Sia.
Thank you, Katie, and thank you for doing such a wonderful job as the Master of Ceremonies. Firstly, I would like to begin by acknowledging the traditional owners of the land on which we meet today. I pay my respects to elders past and present and extend that respect to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islanders peoples here today. Good morning, everyone, and thank you so much for being here today for the formal launch of the Federal Court of Australia Listed Entities Reflection Reconciliation Action Plan. I would like to extend that thank you to all of our staff who've also joined us virtually for this important occasion. At the outset, I would like to apologise for not being able to attend this important event in person. I had every intention to do so. Unfortunately, it became evident to me yesterday at about lunchtime that I was not in a position to travel to Brisbane as a significant operational matter affecting all of the courts, and the tribunal needed to be, and certainly continues to need to be urgently attended to. And I, having watched the performance and the opening, I was just very saddened that I'm not there to share this wonderful occasion with everybody who's present and also online. For those of you who may not be aware, the entity comprises all of the staff and non-judicial officers who support the Federal Court of Australia, the Federal Circuit and Family Court of Australia Division 1, and the Federal Circuit and Family Court of Australia Division 2, and the National Native Title Tribunal. The entity was created and is directly responsible to provide shared corporate and registry services to support the effective operation of each of the courts and the tribunal. The entity's Reflect RAP represents a clear and collective commitment to reconciliation with Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples. It is reflective of how we intend to conduct ourselves as a national institution that supports the courts and the tribunal, and through that the Australian community. For that reason, the way in which we engage with reconciliation and the care with which we do so matters deeply. It is influential to the way we work, the culture we foster, and the confidence and trust placed in us by the community we serve. This Reflect RAP acknowledges both the responsibility we hold and the opportunity we have to strengthen our understanding, maturity, and approach. The entity's RAP is deliberately focused on building strong foundations. Meaningful and enduring progress in reconciliation requires reflection, honesty, and a willingness to learn. This Reflect RAP invites us to pause and consider what reconciliation means in the context of our work. It challenges us to examine our systems, our practices, and our culture, how decisions are made, how respect is demonstrated, and how cultural understanding is embedded across our corporate, operational, and people frameworks. It also emphasises careful consideration, sound governance, transparency, and a sustainable and measured approach to reconciliation activity in order to ensure that reconciliation activities are informed, measured, and credible. A central focus of this RAP is strengthening cultural understanding and capability across the entity. We are committed to creating an environment where Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander employees feel safe and supported, and where their knowledge, perspectives, and contributions are recognised as integral. It also reflects our ongoing commitment to strengthening cultural understanding across the organisation so that all staff are able to engage respectfully and confidently. In the context in which our workforce operates, cultural capability is not optional, it is absolutely essential. Before closing, I want to acknowledge and sincerely thank those who have brought us to this point. Firstly, our RAP champions, Paddy Stride, our Registrar of the National Native Title Tribunal, and Jane Sundry, our Executive Director of People and Culture and Communications, and importantly, the members of the RAP working group. And I want to name them, each one of them individually, because they've been amazing contributors to the point of the journey that we've achieved so far. Firstly, Ashley Hope, who's an Indigenous Liaison Officer in Corporate Services. Karen Chow, our Acting Director of People and Culture in Corporate Services. Dimi Faradio, Assistant Director, Talent and Diversity in Corporate Services. Regan Hull, who's our Manager in Business Operations in the National Native Title Tribunal. Laurelie McGregor, our Acting Senior Judicial Registrar in the Federal Court of Australia. Jasmine Burbridge, Senior Legal Case Manager in the Federal Court of Australia. Anita Chaplin, Senior Legal Case Manager in the Federal Court of Australia. Kirsty Mayland, Director of Indigenous Operations Policy and Support in the Federal Circuit and Family Court of Australia. Elisa Paulson, National Indigenous Family Liaison Officer in the Federal Circuit and Family Court of Australia. Michelle Little, Indigenous Liaison Officer in the Federal Circuit and Family Court of Australia, and Tanya Edwards, Digital and Communications Coordinator in the National Native Title Tribunal. Their work has been thoughtful and deliberate and has resulted in a RAP that is considered and grounded. Secondly, to our Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander colleagues, your knowledge, experience and perspectives have been invaluable to us in this process, and I want to acknowledge your generosity and contributions to the development of this RAP and to the work of the entity. I also want to acknowledge the artwork of Maheen Rind titled The River for Justice, developed specifically for the entity's Reflect RAP, which will be officially unveiled by Katie shortly. It is a complementary visual expression of the Reflect RAP and the stage of the reconciliation journey that we are in. The lessons we take from this Reflect RAP will guide the next stages of our reconciliation journey, inform future reconciliation action plans, and support the entity in meeting its reconciliation responsibilities. I encourage everyone across the entity to engage with this reflection RAP, reflect on what it means in your role, and consider how you can contribute to its commitments. Finally, thank you for joining us today and for your support and contribution. And once again, I sincerely apologise for not being able to be there in person to commemorate such a fantastic milestone with you directly. and it's sadly my loss, and I hope the balance of the event goes well. Thank you.
Thank you, Sia. I'm going to introduce the next two speakers who are going to address us, to save me jumping up and down all the time. First of all, we have Linda Maitland, who's a Senior Judicial Registrar with the FCFCOA, and she will be followed by Kevin Smith, who I mentioned previously, the President of the NNTT, and Kevin also has judicial connections to Ugar and Arab Islands in the Torres Strait. So over to you, Linda. Thank you.
Morning, everybody. In the spirit of reconciliation, I show respect to and acknowledge Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples as the traditional owners and custodians of the land, seas and waterways where the courts operate in and around. Today we meet on Nge'en land, and I acknowledge the Yagara people and Turrbal people and pay my respect to elders past and present. I extend my respect to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples here today, and those who work in the courts and all those who connect with the courts. The courts recognise the family and kin system structures that have existed and operated for thousands of years. I reflect on and acknowledge the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander children and families who play on and connect with and walk this country. I'm a Senior Judicial Registrar in Sydney Registry, and I am privileged to work in the Specialist Indigenous list in that registry on Gadigal land. I'm honoured to be here today on behalf of the Federal Circuit and Family Court of Australia Division 1 and the Federal Circuit and Family Court of Australia Division 2 for the launch of the Federal Court of Australia entity, Reflect Reconciliation Action Plan for 2026-27. The Federal Circuit and Family Court of Australia fully endorses and supports the entity plan in its aim in fostering a diverse and culturally safe workplace where First Nations people feel valued and included, and where respect for the world's oldest continuing cultures is recognised and celebrated. In 2014, the Federal Circuit Court of Australia, as it then was the first court in Australia to enter into a reconciliation action plan. The Family Court of Australia, as it then was, also entered into the reconciliation action plan in 2018. In 2019, the reconciliation action plan was the beginning of a combined RAP for the Federal Circuit and Family Court of Australia within the courts, and the court's path to reconciliation continues through the renewal of the Federal Circuit and Family Court of Australia Reconciliation Action Plan in 2025 that extends to 2027. We understand that reconciliation requires a long-term commitment. Ongoing work is needed to deepen our relationship with First Nation peoples and communities, and we continue to strive to provide culturally safe access to the court system, legal and other support services for court users. In the Federal Circuit and Family Court of Australia family law matters, approximately 1 in every 15 final order filings involves an Aboriginal or Torres Strait Islander party, with a large proportion of those litigants filing in rural and regional areas. First Nations people continue to be overrepresented amongst those affected by family violence, with 67% of First Nations peoples who experience physical harm identifying an intimate partner or family member as the perpetrator, and 72% of assault-related hospitalisations involve family violence. Reconciliation action plans are not a standalone initiative of the courts. They are embedded within the court's broader commitment to ensure fair, safe, and culturally responsive access to justice. In the Federal Circuit and Family Court of Australia, this includes our program initiatives for Indigenous family liaison officers, affectionately known by us as IFLOs, and our specialist Indigenous lists. The court's IFLOs, Indigenous Family Liaison Officer Program, seeks to address the additional barriers faced by First Nation families when engaging with the courts, including fostering a greater understanding of court processes through culturally appropriate communication. The Federal Circuit and Family Court of Australia is immensely proud of the continued expansion, inclusion, and role of the IFLOs, and the IFLOs at court are crucial to improving access to justice, First Nation peoples, and achieving greater engagement for litigants and improving court services. By employing Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander staff, the courts affirm our commitment to reconciliation. You'll be hearing later this morning from Kirsty Malin, our amazing Director of Indigenous Operations, Policy and Support, about her journey. The court's specialist Indigenous lists also provide a more flexible and responsive case management approach in family law matters with respect that respects culture, community, and connection to country. Since the first specialist Indigenous list occurred in 2016, run in the Sydney Registry by Judge Sexton, the courts have continued to increase the availability of these lists across the country, including in regional and rural areas such as Lismore, Port Macquarie and Coffs Harbour. The Federal Circuit and Family Court of Australia congratulate the entity on the development of their Reflection Reconciliation Action Plan for 2026-2027. We look forward to working closely with our colleagues at the entity to improve and increase Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander employment outcomes and in retention, and continue to build strong, enduring relationships with First Nations communities and embed respect, cultural understanding and integrity across our organisation. Thank you.
Thank you, Katie. Firstly, I want to acknowledge country. I want to acknowledge we're on Turrbal and Yagara people's country and pay respects to their elders past and present. I have to say, whenever there is a welcome to country and you see people dance up country like you did there, what you saw downstairs, always makes you feel strong, and it makes you, any nerves that you might have dissipate, because it must be that shaking leg and all that, it's just a bit of stuff that you need to do. I actually want to talk a little bit about that first of all, and then I want to talk about place. And this is an apology for all our colleagues that are watching online. I want to talk about this place here, Brisbane, but I'll get to that in a tick. It was wonderful to see Eddie Ruska's children. Now, Shannon Ruska was the lead dancer and singer downstairs, and his son was the small boy. But I remember seeing Eddie when Eddie's a little bit older than me, and Shannon and I'm probably slightly older than Shannon, and then I remember seeing that small boy as a baby getting out there, shaking legs. So he's been doing this for a long time, but it just goes to show the vibrancy of culture, how it's transmitted from generation to generation, and it's just a wonderful testament to how the vibrancy of laws and customs and how it's transmitted generationally. And I'm pleased to see that young fella Walker. I didn't get his first name, but I have the great honour of actually doing the great Auntie Kath Walker's deed poll when she changed her name to Oodgeroo Noonuccal. So Noonuccal is her tribe, and Oodgeroo was the paper bark. And being a poet and a writer, she changed her name to Oodgeroo Noonuccal. And it's good to see, again, generationally, young people still participating. I want to talk about this place a little bit. So we heard from Shannon. He kind of like orientated us a bit by reference to the different mobs from around this country, and I just want to touch a little bit upon that. So from this building by this river, Maiwar, it's the river is Turrbal language is Maiwar. If you were to look south, that's Mununjali country. So if you imagine there's the river, there's Maiwar, all the way down that way is Mununjali country. You swing around to the west, and that's Yagara country. So this is Turrbal country, but Yagara is connected with Turrbal, and Yagara is to the west, and it goes all the way up to the Toowoomba ranges and so forth. And then to the north and northwest, you actually have Waka people and Waka Waka and Kabi Kabi people, and then to the east, you actually then have the Quandamooka peoples, and Shannon's he traverses all those mobs, but he also has affiliation with that Quandamooka people. And so when you see that all that connection to country, I have to say that all those names I've just mentioned are then part of this broader regional society. So Waka Kabik speakers, the laws and customs at a regional level to the north, Waka Kabik speakers, and to the south it's Yugambeh Bunjalung people, so Mununjali, Narungwal, and groups going all the way south. But this area here is a meeting place, a gathering place of these two great regional societies, and you could imagine reconciliation occurred here before these buildings, and where law was made, law was kept, and law was abided by, and two great regional societies had to deal with whatever was coming their ways. So this place almost has, Shannon used the term Mother Earth. There's something deep in the DNA and the topography of this area around meeting and gathering and lawmaking. Clearly, yes, the river was the lifeblood of mob up and down Maiwar, but sadly, with colonisation, it was also the artery. So Maiwar, the Brisbane River, was used as a vessel to colonise and settle this region. And you could imagine from here, from the Brisbane region, it emanated right across the state of Queensland. And a similar story could be said in other capital cities around the country. I mean, obviously, we're an island. People arrive by boat, islands to the coastline, and then take rivers to then colonise. And three institutions set themselves up along this stretch of Maiwar. That's the Parliament, the courts, and the police. Those three institutions together played a formative role. And I know that we're from the Commonwealth jurisdiction, but I'm going to lump us all in together with the legal system, because mob sometimes don't make the difference. We don't differentiate. So Parliament, court systems, legal system, and police. So you have laws being made, laws being applied, and laws being enforced here. And if you were to look all those places that I spoke about before, there is a street common to West End, Spring Hill, around the Fortitude Valley, and it's called Boundary Street. And Boundary Street, you could imagine where one culture supplants another, they push it away. And so what happened, those institutions moved people outside of the boundary of this CBD area, Meanjin, and it was a curfew. It was a control mechanism to control people. And so that's in the 1840s through to the 1880s. Then what happened is those three institutions, and again, it's not the Commonwealth Courts, but legal system. We would all know about the Aboriginals Protection and Restriction on Sale of Opium Act of 1895. That act was set up through this process here, and that then forced people to be removed from this area. And Western Australia exported that same concept, or we exported it to them. And so legislation was used, and this is the way this country was colonised. Now, I talk about this not to make people feel bad, but to actually make people reflect that it's institutions that had a role in the dispossession, the dislocation of people, and notwithstanding that, you saw a very wonderful, vibrant reflection of culture downstairs. So notwithstanding those impacts, mob have continued to be vibrant and continue. From this very building, by this same river, if you were to look to the northwest, there is a bridge called William Jolly Bridge. I don't even know who William Jolly is, but that bridge, I always remember, because my chambers are just downstairs, literally to the side, and I have this kind of like views of the William Jolly Bridge. But whenever I see that bridge, I recount the year 2000. And the year 2000 was when the Council of Aboriginal Reconciliation actually had the Corroboree Festival and the project, and it actually reported its findings and the vision moving forward around what reconciliation should be. But we all walked, or many of us walked those bridges all around the capital cities of Australia. And I remember walking across that bridge in 2000, and I had my little children walking with me. And it was just a wonderful experience to be First Nations and non-Indigenous people united in, we have a common, we might not have a common past, but we certainly have a common present, and we certainly have a common future. And all those years ago, seeing that kind of action, people walking together side by side in solidarity and unity, was a really heartening thing. And I have to say, I won't get political because I'm told I'm not allowed to because I'm the president of the tribunal. But remember, one of the outcomes of the recommendations was we needed a constitutional recognition. But anyway, that's about as political as I'll get there. The work of the tribunal, we're reminded of reconciliation every day because you look at the preamble of the Native Title Act, it reads like prose, no preamble of any other act. And all those, I don't think the Taxation Act reads like that or any other pieces of Commonwealth legislation. But you read the Native Title Act, it tells a story. The preamble does anyway. The rest of it may not, but the preamble is a beautiful story. And the last sentence of that preamble talks about the Native Title Act in conjunction with the Racial Discrimination Act and other acts are there in furtherance of the process of reconciliation. So the tribunal, and I know the FCA, the Native Title Unit, works clearly with in that space every day. The tribunal also feels very passionate about reconciliation because if we had our little, no, we don't have our thing here, but you would see there's our vision statement is a reconciled future. So we actually believe that there is still unfinished business, and as an institution, we turn our mind to how a reconciled future might occur. So yeah, we walk the talk in that sense. So reconciliation is, to me, I think it's the end game. Rights are something, recognition is something, but it has to lead to something else. And a reconciled country is critical. So I'm going to just conclude on this point that, so we are here in this building by this river, launching the entities River to Justice. Now you can see where this was going. I mean, when I read that this morning, well, probably last night, I just thought, wow, Maheen has really done the entity proud really has encapsulated what our raison d'etre should be in this area. And a river to justice is just a beautiful imagery for the work of the entity. So the imagery is appropriate and powerful, as is the intention and commitment articulated in the Reconciliation Action Plan. I wish you well over the next 12 months or so in the implementation of that. And I think, you know, there are steps to this, and Libby's probably going to talk to you about the steps going all the way to wherever you need to go with it, but you need to start somewhere. And so with the Reflect RAP, that's fantastic. Thanks very much.
Well, thank you very much, Linda and Kevin, for your inspiring addresses. Pick up a couple of little things. For Linda, a RAP document, even implementation, is not a standalone action for reconciliation. So for all of us in our independent courts and tribunals, we have other things we can do in our independent organisations and also individually. And to Kevin, as usual, always inspiring, and pretty much the time too. I mean, the importance of stories, truth-telling and action on the road to reconciliation going forward together is critical that you've highlighted. So now just a bit of an overview from me. Set within a broader national reconciliation agenda, a RAP is the formally recognised framework for organisations to take meaningful action towards reconciliation between Indigenous and non-Indigenous Australians. It establishes accountable structures to embed reconciliation objectives into our everyday operations that are measurable and subject of specific timeframes. A Reflect RAP is an entry-level RAP, as has been mentioned, and this one is the product of research and consultation led by our RAP working group that Sia mentioned the members of over the past 12 months. It is our second Reflect RAP to ensure that the NT has solid foundations before progressing on our organisational journey. I know our structure is probably quite confusing for people externally, and Linda's mentioned that already FCFCOA are quite advanced on their RAP journey, but this RAP is for us collectively and our shared administrative background, even though we have the distinct three organisations, which will make a bit more sense when I explain the artwork. The working group has also commissioned this RAP artwork that is my great privilege to unveil today. And I think we will have it up on screen. We've got a picture of Maheen Rind there, who's our RAP artist. And unfortunately, she's unable to join us today, but I'd like to convey the thanks of the entity for her good work, which was produced through a collaborative process with the working group. Maheen is a proud Yamaji and Badamai woman from Western Australia, and she has Afghan Kamelia heritage. Her work is deeply inspired by country and her connection to culture. It's guided by the teachings of her auntie, who advises her about what is culturally appropriate to share, and within this guidance, she allows her innate creativity to flow. Maheen works across both digital and print media, and she draws on Aboriginal techniques and styles. In her words, she says, creating art is a journey that brings her a sense of peace, and she hopes that through her art, she offers others a feeling of belonging and curiosity to learn, while also honouring the stories, landscapes and traditions that continue to inspire her. So the artwork, as Kevin said, is titled River to Justice, and it was created for the court entities Reflect RAP, representing the courts and the NNTT coming together as one. So the three circles represent the three bodies with their own identities and roles, united through shared purpose and respect. The blue river, Kevin also just referred to, symbolises a continual flow of knowledge, truth and justice. The people, these little green U-shaped motifs,
represent communities, elders and custodians of knowledge. The footprints around the edge here, they reflect the journeys that people take to come together, guided by connection and shared goals. So the key storylines that are woven through this work are of togetherness, that is unity across cultures, and highlighting that we're all on the same journey. Justice, and this is a key to the piece, is both a goal and a guiding principle for our RAP. Progression, so the motives there, they symbolise movement and growth and shared destination that invite reflection on our collective responsibility. And then finally on connection and reflection, prompting personal and organisational reflection on reconciliation. So in Maheen's absence, I think we should acknowledge, give her a round of applause. It's beautiful. Certainly something we can be proud of, and you'll see it all on your signature, on various signature blocks, and it's a great piece of work arising out of that process. I would now like to introduce Joelle Lowe, who is online, I think, for us, from Reconciliation Australia to address us. Thank you, Joelle.
Thank you, Katie. I hope I'm coming in clear through the room there. It's always interesting joining virtually, and thank you for making it so easy to join. I also hope my background is working and it's not flipped the other way, but please let me know in the chat if it is. Well, thank you everyone for having me here today. I am glad that I can join you and be a part of today's reflections. And I think the past hour has certainly been full of exactly that, reflections from tribal experiences, and Shannon to Kevin grounding us in the place that you're gathered here today. So I too want to acknowledge that we're gathered today on traditional homelands of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples. I want to pay my respects to elders who take care of the places we get to live and work on, people in the past and those who are also leading them today. And as was shared in the introduction, I'm Joelle. I'm one of the senior managers at Reconciliation Australia, and I have the privilege of working with lots of different sectors across the country to drive action for reconciliation. And I've certainly seen communities, families and individuals do better when the views and perspectives of First Peoples are honoured and valued. So I'm really encouraged to hear that from all the speakers today about that focus on building that pride and appreciation for First Nations people, histories and knowledge. Just a little bit about who I am. I joined Reconciliation Australia a little over 7 years ago, but before that I lived far away in a different country, and maybe my accent kind of gives that away. I am Chinese on my father's side, Indian on my mother's, and Malaysia is where I spent most of my life. And I feel like so many people in this country, I made the journey to move with my family, and I found a new place to call home. That place for me, I'm joining you virtually from Melbourne on Wurundjeri Woi Wurrung country. Working in the reconciliation space and with First Nations colleagues has been a big part of that migration journey. It has been enriching in many ways, and in ways I didn't expect, especially when I was working through stacks of immigration papers and thinking about how I was going to migrate to Australia. Working in the reconciliation space has given me an understanding of the significance of the land that I live on. And I want to, again, point to what Kevin said about the topography that we're on, and to acknowledge that millennia of care and understanding and respect and connection to country is really goes so deep and is at the heart of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people's connections to culture and their custodianship. So yes, you know, from the amazing histories, custodianship and contributions of First Nations people to the impact that colonization and its policies have had on Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people. that's really a central part of reconciliation, recognizing both those truths. The pre-colonization history as well as the post-colonization impact. A lot of what you do with your rap is about recognizing what our role is in changing the outcome, in shifting how we have relationships with First Nations people. The organization I work for, Reconciliation Australia, has led this work for the last 25 years, urging and encouraging all Australians and people who call this place home to recognize our shared history and come together to create communities we can all be proud of. So when we use the word reconciliation, we're not referring just to morning teas, we're committing ourselves to the cause of justice and supporting self-determination for Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people. With today's RAP launch, the entity commits once again to the work of reconciliation. You join more than 3,000 organizations directly impacting over 25% of the Australian workforce every day. Your Reflect RAP gives you many opportunities to contribute to positive outcomes through everyday steps and changes. You have the opportunity to be more accessible, culturally safe in what you do. And that starts by listening to the experiences and feedback given by Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander communities. You have the opportunity to build stronger understanding and appreciation of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples and cultures. And importantly, you're in a position to equip every employee to play their part in advancing reconciliation, not just in the workplace, but through their families and their wider communities as well. So I'm really encouraged to hear what Katie said as well about the RAP and its purpose. It's not just about words on a page or commitments in a document. It's about the culture you're building and the way in which you're contributing to a better future. This requires sustained and strategic action. It does take leadership, it takes focus, and it takes all of us working together. In just a month or just a little over a month, we will mark National Reconciliation Week. And the theme for this year is All In. And those two words, those two simple words, All In, makes clear that reconciliation isn't the responsibility of First Nations people alone. All of us must step away from the sidelines and take actions that create change. So, just as I close, I do want to invite all of us to reflect on how we individually might show up this year and be all in for reconciliation. In closing, in conclusion, I just want to thank you again for the opportunity to join your reflections, congratulate you on the culmination of hard work, and wish you the best of luck as you implement your commitments in the next 12 to 18 months. Thank you. Back to you, Katie.
Yeah, thank you very much, Joelle, for joining us. Now, I'll again introduce the next two speakers, so you can just continue one after each other. So next we have Libby Ferrari. Thank you for your time coming here today. Libby's the interim CEO of Reconciliation Queensland, and she will be followed by Kirsty Malin, who is the current Acting Director of Indigenous Operations Policy and Support in the FCFCOA, and important part of the RAP working group as well. So thank you, Libby and Kirsty.
Thank you, Katie. And I have the pleasure of having Katie as a board member at Reconciliation Queensland, and really thank you for all your support always in this space. So very grateful, and we had a great time up on Thursday Island recently. So that was even better. Thank you very much for the opportunity to come and join you this morning. I'm glad you, Kevin, did a little bit of free ranging, because that's actually my style, and now I feel like I have permission to do that. But, in 5 minutes. I'll be done in 4. What you said about Shannon and his team's performance downstairs was really striking for me down there, and I think it's because it was in the foyer of an institution like this, to have strong Aboriginal men occupying that space confidently, powerfully, with grace was like a bit of a moving thing. I felt, it was a really significant moment. And I just hope that we all, as non-Indigenous people in this room as well, can receive that with the grace that it is always given, notwithstanding the past that we've all lived together. So I think every time I see not just Shannon and his team, but people that welcomed me and my board up on country on the north coast there, it is always so gracious and so welcoming. So I think please just remember that and respond in the same fashion. I also acknowledge we're here on the lands of the Turrbal and Yuggera people. Kevin explained it beautifully, how all of those groups fit in together. People get a bit confused by that. It's not confusing, it's just new information a lot of the time. So I think to have someone explain it so beautifully is wonderful. A little bit about me, I am actually a mining girl. Had worked 23 years in the mining industry for BHP across all of Australia, across Canada as well in the latter part of my career. I ended up working in the native title space. I ran the global Indigenous engagement team for BHP, so I felt very fortunate to be able to do that with some incredible people. So I've worked across Whadjuk Noongar, Wodjar, Jawal country, did an agreement negotiation there, and more recently in my time in Queensland, negotiated an agreement with Barada Barna, and look forward to seeing a lot of those people as they come down to my big gala dinner in a couple of weeks' time. I also just wanted to start by saying I can't imagine a greater intersect than your space has with the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander community. I used to think mining was probably, the most significant and tangible intersect between people, country and development. But hearing a few of the words today, it is quite striking, the level of intersect that you have with this incredible part of our population in Australia. So again, I think, reflect on that and reflect that everyday decisions that are made where you work are highly impactful and therefore highly important for us all. This isn't in my speech either, but Joelle, so Rec Australia is sort of like the Coles supermarket version of Reconciliation Queensland. We're the local Drakes or the RIGA, whatever you want to say, but we're a corner store, very, very locally focused. So my kind of conversation will be much more about Queensland, and obviously, the entity is much more wide-ranging than that, but my business and my organisation is particularly interested in the Queensland sort of situation. You're on a reflect level wrap. I think you said it was your second one, Katie. There's 4 levels in total. So we've got reflect, innovate, stretch and elevate at BHP. I think we might have been one of the first people to have an elevate wrap, and we sent 6 through the wrap system during the course of the time that I was there, the last 2 being elevate. So I know how tough it is to get through, the RA process. They're very supportive, but it is a pretty rigorous process for a reason. So congratulations on doing that. I've got footage of that 2000 bridge walk in my inbox. I got it sent yesterday, so I'm going to flick it to you so you can relive that. And we're going to play that at our dinner in Reconciliation Month, we're calling it now. So I mentioned earlier at Rec Queensland, our focus is about how this work impacts on the ground. So we love the plans and the artwork's incredible. I'll talk a little bit more about that later, but it's actually how it shows up on the ground in this state and how in return that, reflects in communities, in organisations and in families. National frameworks are super important. Rec Queensland backs everything that RA does, including the RAP plan and program. But while they're important, I think reconciliation is ultimately experienced locally, and even more local in Queensland. I mean place-based towns, communities, remote communities. And in Queensland, that means engaging with some of the most complex and important intersections of land, law and community in the country. I always am at pains to speak about recognising that Queensland is uniquely the home of Aboriginal people and of Torres Strait Islander people, so distinct, different cultures. And as I mentioned before, Katie and I had the chance to be up there recently, and particularly in the Torres Strait, to see firsthand how crucial land and sea rights are. It's what you eat, it's how you get your food, it's how you entertain your kids, it's how, it's how you live and sustain communities. So that's why these sort of RAPs are critically important in your work. I also had a bit of a chance to think over the last few days about what the law does, particularly in the native title space, which is where I have more experience, and it can either entrench inequality, or if it's used in the right way, it can enable self-determination. So, that's, I know, what everybody in this room wants it to do, and needs to focus on. Native title at its best is one of the clearest examples we have, the law being used to recognise rights and create a pathway for First Nations people to have a meaningful role in decisions about their own land, culture and economic future. And in Queensland, where there actually is quite a significant volume of title activity, Katie will be busy for the next period of time, I'm sure, across both mainland and Torres Strait communities, the way institutions operate in this space really matters. This RAP signals a shift in how that work is approached, and I thank whoever sent it to me early ahead of time so I could have a real deep read of it. I appreciated that, including, what sounds easy but is really important: First Nations-led mediation processes, greater involvement of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander practitioners in this space, and the use of on-country processes to balance out the way things are done culturally. We all know that when processes happen on country and when First Nations people are leading those processes, the system starts to respond differently. There's more space for cultural authority, more opportunity for genuine community participation, and a stronger connection between the legal outcomes that you all live on a day-to-day basis and the lived reality of people at the receiving end of those. And that's where self-determination begins to move from concept into practice. It's also important, and I can be slightly more political. Katie will be watching and listening. But as I said, I'm particularly interested in Queensland, and it's important to acknowledge the broader context within which we're operating in this state currently. Reconciliation is not happening in a neutral environment. I talk to people every day about this. There have been recent decisions that we're all acutely aware of at a state level that have caused real concern for Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people in this state, particularly around areas in truth-telling and treaty where things have either been repealed, paused or stepped back. For many Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people, and of course many of us in the non-Indigenous community, this feels like a step backwards at a time when progress should be accelerating. It reinforces how important it is that institutions like yours continue to play a steady and constructive role in progressing reconciliation in practical ways, because while the policy environment may shift, the need for progress does not. So from an RQI perspective, this is exactly where the focus needs to be, on how you continue to evolve, on how you build genuine partnerships with First Nations communities, and how you contribute to outcomes that are not just legally sound, but socially and culturally meaningful and respectful. That work doesn't sit with you alone. It requires alignment between courts, the police down the road here, the tribunals, government, community, organisations like ours, all playing their role. So I do join everybody else in congratulating you for being a part of that broader picture. It's really important. It's an important step into making sure that you keep embedding reconciliation into your core business, particularly in areas like native title, where the stakes are high and the impact is real. Again, I commend the entity, and this is on behalf of my whole board, my chairs, our members, for your leadership, and we are here to support you wherever you may need. Last word has to go to the beautiful artwork that Maheen Rind from a very strong WA family has produced for you guys. I think it's just beautiful, and hopefully you've got that framed somewhere and you can keep that on the rest of your many, many years of journey. But thank you so much for having Rep Queensland here. We're a phone call away if you need anything, and yeah, it's been really beautiful to see you all.
Thank Thank you. The welcome is always really, really helpful, particularly for me personally. So I just want to acknowledge what you said, Kevin. The fear of doing these things is overwhelming, and just being able to be grounded and get that strength before you come into these spaces is so important. I'd like to start by acknowledging the traditional custodians of the lands on which we meet today, the Turrbal and Yagara peoples, and all nations that may be joining us from across Australia. I pay my respects to elders past and present, and to our future leaders, our children. I also want to acknowledge my ancestors. So Wirangu Gugutha Western Arada, so South Australia, Central Desert. So I bring a lot of strength and culture with me in everything I do. So I'm very grateful for that. My story is a little bit different. So I'm very glad that you asked me to give the cultural perspective, because it lets me to share my story, which I don't normally share. So when I think about what a reconciliation action plan truly means, I don't start with a document, a policy, or a strategy. I start with a young woman, a young Aboriginal woman with no confidence, no self-worth, a young woman in family violence, living in her car, unsure where safety would come from or whether anyone would truly see her. That woman was me. At that time in my life, I wasn't thinking about careers or futures. I was focused on survival, on food, shelter, and safety. I carried a deep sense of shame and invisibility, and did not believe that places like courts, governments, or institutions were spaces where someone like me belonged. Interactions with those spaces were avoided and occurred out of obligations, and were not viewed as a safe space for support. For me, a RAP is not an abstract concept, it is a lived experience. A RAP represented safety, it meant access to food, it meant dignity, and ultimately it gave me the ability to live independently and to imagine a future that was not defined by violence or disadvantage. Through an affirmative measures recruitment, a simple, intentional action that required only a small percentage changed the entire trajectory of my life. It shifted. Someone made a conscious decision to open a door rather than close one. That opportunity did not just change my employment status, it changed how I saw myself and what I believed was possible. And the significance of that decision goes far beyond me. Its impact rippled outward into the small communities and mob that I am connected to. It's created intergenerational change, the kind that shapes how families heal, how children dream, and how the next generation sees themselves, reflected in systems that once excluded them. There is a saying many of us know, which is you can't be what you can't see. To me, that is the very heart of the RAP. A RAP creates visibility, it creates pathways. It says to Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander children and young people, you belong here. It says your knowledge, our strength, and our lived experience matter, not just in theory, but in practice. A RAP is not just a document that sits on a shelf. It is a commitment, a real commitment to accountability, to learning, and to walking together. Here at the core, as a community of people who care deeply about families, children, and justice, the RAP provides a framework to walk this journey together in a way that is respectful, intentional, and enduring. Closing the gap is not just about statistics, it's about relationships, it's about trust, it is about how people feel when they walk through the doors of this court, whether they feel feared, judged, or unseen, or whether they feel heard, respected, and safe. Most importantly, a RAP is an invitation. It's an open invitation to learn, an open invitation to listen, an invitation to experience and celebrate one of the world's most ancient, resilient, and beautiful living cultures. It invites us all to build meaningful, genuine relationships with the communities we serve, and to embrace the joy, strength, wisdom, and love that those connections bring into our workplaces and into our lives. I want to sincerely thank the courts for its commitment to reconciliation and for choosing to embed these values into its work. That commitment matters deeply. It sends a powerful message to Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples, but to every family and every child who comes before this court, that they are seen, valued, and treated with dignity. I also want to congratulate everyone involved in the development of this RAP. This work is not easy and it is not finished, but it is meaningful. I encourage each and every one of you to keep walking with us, not only to close the gap, but to connect with the strength, pride, and love that comes from being connected to mob and part of the Australian community. Together as one, as colleagues, as community, as custodians of justice, we can create lasting generational change. And thank you for walking with this journey with us.
Wow. Well, thank you very much, Libby. First of all, your great experience and leadership in RQ is a great benefit to not only the organisation but all that it touches. And thank you for giving your time today. And I think, as you noted, despite having national, international experience, like this journey is so much down to families, individuals, and on ground. And that was exemplified in Kirsty's address. Thank you so much for sharing a very personal story to everybody. I feel emotional. It's really powerful, and you know this work is really important, not just the glossy bits of it, the real bits. So that brings us to the end of today. I know everybody's really busy, so thank you for your time, those people who've come today and those people online who are still there. Hopefully, you know, your support and time is important and significant, and we hope you continue to be involved and committed to the implementation of this RAP and in other areas, the objectives of reconciliation, your own lives and families. So we have come to a close and we will end the live stream. Sorry to everybody online that you can't join us for refreshments, but everybody in the room, I believe we're heading out over towards the courts on the other side of the foyer, so please stay and join with us. Again, a huge applause for everybody who spoke and addressed us. I think it was really powerful. Thank you.